this would have been where Davey Allison's cars came out of. That's the old DarWal Inc. sign right there. This shop right here is where Dale Earnhardt's first championship car came from.
The story about that shop in Concord, North Carolina is exactly this.
The Stavola Brothers. Dale Jarrett's Interstate Batteries Daytona 500 car was built out of this building. Power Team Racing. Found some website that's been up since like 1998 that just has a whole list of these things on here. Today we're doing some exploring and we're gonna show you current buildings that used to be Winston Cup race shops back in the golden era of NASCAR that are still standing. If you drove by them now, you wouldn't necessarily know what they ever were, but I've done a bunch of research to track down as many of these as possible. So we're gonna drive all over the Charlotte area and show them to you, give you as much backstory as we can. Take note of which ones you want to see more about, because we will track down people that used to work there and try to get inside and do like a history video. If that's something you're interested in for any of these, leave it in the comments. First one we're coming up on here, this used to be MB2, like the M&M's car. Right now it's Detroit Speed. We're actually friends with those guys and we have a video inside that building if you want to see it. But that's where Ken Schrader, Ernie Irvin, the 36 Pontiac used to be in there. Back then it was just the first building. The second one Detroit Speed built, and the first building had that lean-to on it, and they parked the hauler in there. And you got pictures somewhere where they would take the car out and put it on jack stands literally under that little roof there and pressure wash it all off, you know, on a Monday when they got back in town and stuff, which is pretty cool. That's a pretty significant shop. I still got the surface plate and stuff in the ground where they did, and Detroit Speed still puts cars on there. It's pretty cool. You can see it.
They like still currently, I guess, technically build cars for NASCAR drivers.
Yeah.
They built Junior's Camaro.
Yeah, they did. Another one right here that's still here is Joe Nemechek at Demco. I don't know how long he's been there, but I know it's been a really long time. Don't know anything about anything that goes on in there at all. Wish I did, because there's probably a lot of really cool parts. I'm pretty sure there were other race teams in this little cul-de-sac park here, but I do not know what they are. If you worked for any of them, leave a comment, because that's how we figured this stuff out. We are gonna move over to, it's called Lakeside Park. There were, I don't even know, probably like 20 shops in there back in the late 90s or early 2000s. You could have gone through there and it was just like do every single one. And it's pretty evident that a lot of those places used to be race shops, and not very many of them are anymore, but there's a lot to be had in there. There's even signs that say caution, race fans ahead. Like there used to be so many race shops in here that it was a known thing. This HRE is Hattori is a truck series team now. I'm sure that used to be something. I've been told that was formerly Rusty Wallace's, and that was his helipad back there. Don't know that for sure, but it would make sense because this MSI building right here, that used to be Penske. That was the Penske South, like where, you know, Rusty Wallace and the 2 car, that all that came from right here. And I'm pretty sure that's where Red Bull Racing was in later years. Right here at SRI Performance was Roush Racing. There's pictures online of that sign right there when it said Penske and Penske Cranifus. Building used to be brown, I think, but I mean that's it right there. It's pretty neat. It's pretty weird to think that Penske and Roush were right next door to each other. And this is not the first Roush building. The first Roush building was in Liberty. This was the original Roush Racing shop in Liberty, North Carolina. We were actually going to get a project car for Logan, and it ended up being a rust bucket, which, you know, that happens. But like, oh, we're right by Liberty. We need to go see if we can find the old Roush building. We found it, and it's even got the OG logo on here still kind of visible. It's like painted over. And the other side has the newer Roush Fenway logo on it. That's so freaking cool. They tried to paint over it, but I can't even imagine. We're literally like in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing out here. Just think of the old Mark Martin Valvoline hauler coming in and out of here back in the day. But like it was added on to multiple times. I don't know which structure was the first one or not. Probably the middle, and then the ends were added later, and then these back buildings. I have no idea what goes on in here.
And there was a sign on the front door that said must be 21 to play.
Yeah, like
what is this place?
Is there like a bingo hall in there or something too? They get diesel pump. Like maybe they had their own pump there so they could top their haulers off before they hit the road. Do you see any evidence on the ground that says Roush or anything like that?
No.
I don't either. Yeah, I bet the end buildings were the original ones because that was probably the first parking lot. There's more back there too. I don't even know. The signs are aggressive though, so we're not going to go back there. Yeah, I bet this was the first one right here. That was probably where it all...
That Smuggle is so old.
Man, that's cool. What's so weird, it's in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing here. Nothing. This place right here in Thomasville was the former Bill Davis building where Mark Martin ran his Winn-Dixie car out of before selling the team to Jack, moving to the one we were just at. The Jeff Gordon Baby Ruth car also came out of this place. And now they build racing engines in here. It's like Beal racing engines. I'd have to talk to them, see if there's anything cool in there. I don't know for sure, but I believe SRI is a part of Roush's group. It used to be Roush Race Used Parts or something like that. There's still stickers on the wall of like the old car numbers and, you know, air hoses, things on the floor, lockers in the bathrooms, like that kind of stuff. It's really, you know, kind of all still there. I think we'll get to see the inside of that one pretty soon. And right there is the North Carolina Auto Racing Hall of Fame, which is a pretty freaking cool museum. If you've never been there before, you definitely need to go. Don Miller is the guy who runs that over there. He's the dude that kind of founded Penske Racing South with Roger Penske and Rusty Wallace back then. And we did a pretty cool video with him talking about a prototype car that they built that Ford never made, that they thought about making, but NASCAR wouldn't allow it. I would think that this MSI place has something to do. This was probably something too, but don't really know, because it's MSI defense on both sides of SRI. And most of these places are not race shops anymore, but some of them still are. Like this one, the current location of Front Row Motorsports used to be Sabco Ganassi before it just became Ganassi, and they eventually moved to Concord. But this place, pretty cool.
It's a really nice building.
Yeah, it's a very nice building. I think there's pictures of it when it said Sabco in the front. It was really nice too. And they share a cul-de-sac with Chick-fil-A now, so I'm sure they appreciate the extra traffic. We're gonna find at least one other former Sabco location on this drive, maybe two. Might have to do some more research. There's a sign back there, like a park directory, that literally says like Red Bull Racing, Roush Racing, Team Jasper, all the places that are not in here anymore. They never updated the sign or took them off. It's kind of funny. And Simpson World right there is a pretty awesome place. They've been there since 1997, I think. There's a lot of really neat stuff in there.
So they have a complete car on like the roof in there, like
a whole body. There's a whole Dale Earnhardt Lumina body on the roof. Found some website that's been up since like 1998 that just has a whole list of these things on here. Pretty crazy. I didn't know if you could buy a domain back then and just have it last forever or something. There's a few more in here. And there's 2311 now. That used to be some other team shop. I can't even remember. Like recently it was something else right before they bought it. Don't really know. This next one we're coming up on here was Bahari Racing. Like the Michael Waltrip number 30 Pennzoil car, Johnny Benson, that one. And back then that was a pretty state-of-the-art place. You can tell it's still nice today. This might be a place we might be able to see the inside of someday, because it looks like they still do car stuff in there, and I know some guys that used to work there back when it was the Bahari days. And right there, at least the address online says that used to be Butch Mock. Doesn't look like much of a former race shop anymore. But we're coming up on some pretty cool ones here. At least I think so. Really significant ones. So there's the Roush Yates engines right there. I was told that's where Rob Moroso's Swisher Sweets car came from back in the day. And this place right here, this Carolina Coach Collection, this was Ricky Rudd's shop, which was later absorbed by Robert Yates once he bought Ricky out and Ricky started driving for Robert. This place is big. Really big. And it's cool that they still do car stuff in there. I like seeing that. Now we have to turn around. It's like doing this in a big diesel truck is really not that convenient. Oh, there's that minivan we saw the other day.
Oh, that's funny. That makes sense.
Oh, look at that Suburban. Got a really nice square body Suburban back there. Okay, I don't care about the Porsche in the parking lot so much, but they got a really nice Suburban. We need to meet these people. Obviously, these places look like they've been facelifted or added on to over the years, but that's still, you know, that's still where it happened. This looks like it was some kind of race shop too. Don't know what it was. Maybe it's newer. And there's Rusty Wallace / Southern Country Customs, where him and Steven do the really cool Harleys, but that used to be like Rusty Wallace Busch Series stuff. This one right here didn't even find on the internet. Sometimes we'll just park a truck somewhere and go for a walk in a random industrial park just because change of scenery, and happened to walk by the mailbox and notice something. Look at that. Power Team Racing. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? It's on both sides of the mailbox. No one ever took it off. They just spray painted right over it. That was like Jeff Bodine in the number 60 car with the silver wheels. It was like Joe Bessie, I think, was the owner. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I guess that's where that came from. And you can see they were probably the first guys in here. Just how the road is paved. Like, this is older pavement and it goes straight into there. And then there's newer pavement that goes this way, which is pretty neat. You know, I like to look for stuff like that. It's evidence of how things are developed or evolve and become what they are. Because the turn in here is really, really narrow. So this place isn't even the same as it was last time we came back here just a couple months ago. This was formerly Michael Waltrip Race World. Probably one of the wildest looking buildings that you'll see that ever had race shop history.
Wasn't it a movie theater before it was his race shop?
Yeah, this, talk about weird past. This place was a movie theater. At least that's, read that somewhere, pretty sure.
I mean, it looks like a movie theater if you like actually look at like the center of the building, like
yeah,
the way the doors are.
Yeah, it looks like it's designed for high volume people in and out. Like, the parking lot is so big. Like, there's just, it's just weird. This place is insane. I think back then it had like MWR on those little rectangles. It even says Michael Waltrip Racing on the sign to this park still. They haven't taken that off yet. Who thinks, let's go get an old movie theater and make it our race shop? Michael Waltrip. Now we are headed to the former location of Robby Gordon Motorsports, which is still the current location of Robby Gordon Motorsports. Sounds stupid, but he still has the building. All of his shenanigans are still run out of there. It's also where his Cup team came from. And then after that, we're going to go to an address that we have not previously been to that is supposed to be a former Joe Gibbs location. And then there's another former Joe Gibbs location after that. We're progressively getting closer to Charlotte because kind of as time went on, things moved further and further away. Like Holman Moody, I believe they were one of the first places to set up shop in this area. Their shop, the current location of it now, it's torn down, but it's in between runways at the Charlotte International Airport. It's legitimately a thing. You can look at the historic aerial of where it was versus now, you can see a little bit of the stub of the road, like the corner where it used to be. It's in between 2 runways now, which that really stinks, because if that place was still standing, that would be awesome. Yates Racing, the original spot for that, is also closer to Charlotte. We have not been there before, and that's probably the one that I'm the most excited about. It's got this whole freaking compound, basically. Did he paint the building? I don't think it looked like that before.
It did.
It did?
Yeah.
Oh, he's got like ramps and stuff, and there's like a little racetrack cutout thing in there. It's pretty cool. Some of you may know already, but a lot of you probably don't, that motorhome in the background when we're working on stuff, that was Robby's old motorhome. And there are numerous videos about that thing on the channel. And the whole playlist, actually, I'll link that in like a little bubble thingy up here. It was Al Unser Jr.'s first, and then he sold it to Robby, and Robby sold it to the president of Red Bull. So our old motorhome used to live here.
It's repainting the gray too, because look how new the gray looks here versus over here. See how there's like a swatch down in the bottom corner?
Yeah, it definitely is. I bet our motorhome used to live in there, right in there. One of the guys who used to drive it for him actually messaged me on Instagram and said that Robby didn't want to pay for the dump station, so he just had him drive around the park and just like let the poop tank rip somewhere. But he hated doing that, so he would go drive it to a truck stop and pay for the dump station himself, because you don't know if you ever used to dump the poop tank in an RV, not into a tank, you smell all of it, and it is bad. So
even if somebody dumps it where they're supposed to dump it, you still smell it, and it's awful.
Yeah, no, you don't want to dump the black tank of an RV to an open hose. It's just bad news. But sure, that's happened. It's probably gone down that drain before. Who knows? I think that's pretty funny. But if he sold that motorhome to the Red Bull guy, then it probably lived at the old Penske building. So this is like a racing history tour / places our motorhome used to live tour. Kind of funny. You should definitely check those videos out. There's a lot more to those stories that I left out. Well, this address right here comes up for Joe Gibbs Racing in the 90s. See if we can find any evidence of
It's a massive building.
Former race shop. Yeah, I could definitely see this being a race shop back then. I mean, their place now is far bigger than this, but this looks like it, you know, it could have handled a cup team operation back then. Especially because of these flags. It always seems like these race shops like to put flags in the front, and I don't know why. 3 flags, it's always like that. And it just looks very Gibbsy. I can just see the Joe Gibbs thing right up there. Back in the Bobby Labonte and Tony Stewart days. The other address we're gonna go to would be like where the shop was whenever Dale Jarrett drove the Interstate Batteries car in '91. So this place would have been the second evolution of Joe Gibbs. It looks like there's a covered area back there. That might have been like a tear down area where they parked a hauler or something. That's a generally good giveaway for that kind of stuff. This place here wasn't even on the GPS. I just remembered it. But this is where Rod Osterland was. The location, like this shop right here is where Dale Earnhardt's first championship car came from. Right out of there, that big one right there, that was the first one there. And it was also J.D. Stacy's after he sold that out. And on top of that, the
turn right onto Old Statesville Road, then turn left onto Lakeview Road.
The Skull Bandit team operated out of here before they got their first shop too. Somebody who used to work here told me that. Pretty crazy. Harris Professional Building, you have no idea what you used to be. I bet nobody here has any idea what they used to be. Figures they got Cardboard Dale Jr. in the window. So apparently you could walk between the old Osterland shop and the original Gibbs building, because it's right here. This goofy looking place, it says Panda, Granite, and Cabinet.
T. Harris Boulevard.
You're kidding.
That's it. This is it. Now I highly doubt this weird pyramid thing was on there whenever this was the Gibbs shop, but nonetheless the structure is what it was. Pretty freaking wild. 1991-ish, I think that was the list I got this from. So the thing that Dale Jarrett's Interstate Batteries Daytona 500 car was built out of this building. Wonder if it did look like that back then. I mean, that whole thing looks really old. Doesn't look like there's even anywhere good to pull a car into, unless there's doors in the back or they went up that ramp. Now this is a place I would like to get some stories on from somebody who works there, because I have so many questions. I mean, it may not have even been this big. It could have been added onto multiple times since then, but don't know. It sure is strange. Address listed for Cale Yarborough Motorsports. That is also one that was victim of the airport. The original location of that shop is now a runway, so he must have built his place right next to Holman Mooney, which seemed like a smart decision at the time. Stinks that it's not around anymore, because we actually have, you know, those RCA bumpers that are up on the wall of the shop? And those are Cale Yarborough bumpers from Jeremy Mayfield's car. But now we're going to the original Robert Yates Racing shop. Robert Yates bought the team from, I think it was Harry Ranier. It was Ranier. Since Robert Yates did buy the team from Ranier, I wanted to figure out if this was the same building that Ranier was in, and did a little bit of digging. Found this screenshot where somebody, whoever runs the Ranier Twitter account, says that Harry bought the land in 1979, tore down a cotton mill, and used the bricks to build his house. If you look at the aerial from 1978, you'll see the building, and you'll see a little bigger building north of it that looks like probably the brick mill that got torn down, because if you go to the 1983, it's gone. It's just a field, but the little building is still down there. Say little, the shop, their main race shop. And then you go to 98, and the big conglomerate is there in its current configuration as Robert Yates Racing. That means everything that happened with the 28 car from 79 onward until Yates left happened at this property in this building, like Cale Yarborough's Daytona flip, Buddy Baker and the Gray Ghost, Bobby Allison, all that stuff happened right here, and the building still stands. This would have been where Davey Allison's cars came out of, from, you know, him, Ernie Irvin, Dale Jarrett, and now it's a Caliber Collision. Seems like you can tell this was a facility that had a lot of money in it at one point. This is really, really nice compared to the surrounding area. We're in like a really old part of town. And by old, I mean, you know, you can tell the buildings are not that well kept up. Like downtown Charlotte, you can see it from here. We're pretty close to it. All the newer stuff has crept farther and farther away from it. Gates open, let's go in. So I wonder, I think that one right there was probably the original one. I feel like I've seen pictures of the skinny windows. It used to be brick. That's got to be it. Wow, that's awesome. We need to do a tour here with somebody who worked here, because this is incredible. That was probably like the chassis shop or something like that. Wow. This is some serious history right here, and you would have no idea otherwise. None. Yeah, that's, if you're wondering why there's a 10-foot tall fence around the whole place, it's because of the area that it's in. Old Robert probably had some things pilfered from his place of business a few times. Decided no more. so freaking cool. Think about an old semi-truck hauling Davey Allison Thunderbirds in and out of here back in 1990. And they're just regular old steel buildings with fancy looking front ends on them.
It's like a
Yeah, it almost is annoying at how much everything is the same. Oh, there we go. There's some more evidence back there. Probably hauler bays in that big open part. Call 911 to report suspicious behavior. Somebody calling us because we're being suspicious right now. Just trying to observe some history. I'm gonna make it a personal mission to see the inside of that building and do a bigger video on it, because there's just too much in there to not do that. I mean, it's a body shop. It's huge. There has to be evidence of race team existence in there. Like old engine dyno cells, like where it's just impossible to not have some type of forensic evidence of that past. And we need to see that, and we need to find somebody who worked there to paint that picture. Don't know when, but I can promise you it's gonna happen. So if that's something you want to see, you should definitely make sure you're subscribed, because it's coming. Now we're coming up on what I would speculate is the original location of Sabco, Felix Sabata's team. The story behind that is, I think it was in the late 80s, he bought an R&D team from Rick Hendrick, and that's where that originated. This is the earliest address I can find for that, and it looks like, oh, it's right here. You got the signature race shop trademark 3 flagpoles in the front, so it's very possible that this is it. Well, it has to be. I wouldn't be surprised if it started right there and then they built this one and used that little one for something else. It's also a body shop. That's funny. Got some skinny windows in the front. What do you think? Does that look like a race shop to you? I think it is. And there's one more address we have on the list for Sabco. We have not gone to the Harrisburg, Concord area yet. We're going to have to do that tomorrow because we're losing daylight. But we're in the Concord area now. And back when they built the speedway here, there wasn't really anything out here. So right here is DarWal World Headquarters. Formerly, the tracks are right there. It's literally the only thing between here and the track is a camping lot. You see where the sign used to be right there, and your typical race shop flagpoles. But they only got 2 instead of 3. I guess I stand corrected. But this place is...
Maybe the third one fell over and they didn't want to replace it.
Yeah, it's very possible there were 3. We'll have to look at some of the older pictures. I don't know what they do in here anymore, but I think this shop used to have BK Racing in it. I think. Don't quote me. I know it's had other lives since then, but it doesn't look like it's really been updated.
Don't they build Hondas here now?
I don't know. It kind of looks like it, yeah.
I feel like they do.
Yeah, well, no turnaround in here. I'd really like to see the inside of this place. This could be one with somebody who worked here. It'd be cool to see the inside of. And there's murals on it, which is interesting. Oh, that's a neat Kodiak truck. I wonder what Daryl thinks whenever he drives by this place.
I don't feel like he drives by this place.
I don't think he does.
He lives like too far away.
I mean, when he used to drive by this place, because his museum was right over there. We're gonna go drive by that next. Yeah, that's the old DarWal ink sign right there.
It's very odd because it's like a bunch of campgrounds and like houses.
Yeah, it's strange. this place was his museum up until a couple years ago. 6,900. Good one, Daryl. Yeah, this was the museum for a little bit, and that's also where the GMC truck that we kind of did the unpacking of used to sit. And he traded the trailer, the matching trailer for that truck, for that fence. And the trailer is actually sitting right down the street. We're gonna go drive by that next. It's like an old GMC Astro cab over box truck. That was his, and then it was Bud Moore's, and you know, through the Bernhardt Wrangler era, you know, Bobby Allison, Ricky Rudd, all kinds of legendary drivers have had their things hauled by that truck, and we get to show you the inside of it. I'll put a link to that video right up in this bubble here.
The Wrangler scheme is the coolest, fight me.
It might be the coolest if the Good Wrench one never existed.
I think it's coolest because it's like not well documented.
Yeah, that is true.
And it embodies like who he is.
Yeah, that was like the perfect marketing campaign, the whole one tough customer thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that could ever be topped. Yeah, here's the matching trailer is up there. You can see it behind that stuff. I bet they park stuff in front of it on purpose to not draw attention, because that thing blocks the 17 on the back.
Yeah, it was more exposed one of the last times we came through here.
Here it is, Victory Lane Southwest. What a name.
Watch out.
Oh. This right here, the Spire building, was Alan Kulwicki's. That tree right there, you know, the famous picture with Alan in his briefcase, car was sitting right there, and that tree is a lot smaller. But that is so cool. It's a big place, it's deceptively big. It does not look like it's that big from the road, but it just keeps going.
I think a lot of them did that. Like Dick Trickle's old shop.
They try to make them look smaller on purpose.
Yeah, like the storefront looks really small, but they're just super long.
This could have been added to also, because
Yeah, this part is taller and looks newer.
yeah, after Alan's plane crash, Jeff Bodine bought the team, and they ran out of here, you know, in like the number 7 QVC car. After that, it was like Matei Motorsports or something. Like, you remember Michael Waltrip and the number 7 Nations Rent with like the caution sign around it? That came out of here. I don't know what happened after that, but I do know that it was used. I've actually been to this place when I was really little. It was the race shop for Circle Bar Racing in the Truck Series, which was Rick Crawford at the time. Some of you might know who he is now, because he's a chomo. Which really stinks, because the only type of insider access or cool things that I was able to do as a little kid, from my dad got to know the people across from him who camped in Michigan, and the guy's son got older and eventually became Rick's manager. So during the Truck Series races at Michigan, we could go in there and hang out in the holler, and I always climbed with the top, and they like let me climb in the backup truck and poke buttons and all kinds of stuff. I don't know why they let me do that, but that's that was really cool. I have very fond memories of that. And one time I left my hat on the helmet hook in the truck because I thought I was cool, and I took it off and stuck it there, and I forgot about it. And I was like, I don't know where my hat went or whatever. We went somewhere, came back, and Rick was pulling the truck out, like his race truck, like going out for practice or something, and he stuck the hat out the window net, like with the truck on and everything. And I was like, oh, my hat. And yeah, for the record, there was nothing to indicate that he was anything besides a regular race car driver back then. He was a pretty cool dude. We went to a race at Mansfield once, and it was rained out, and he was thinking about buying my dad's motorhome. So it was raining, he didn't have anything to do, so he came over to the lot and BS for a little bit, and I asked him if he wanted to play PlayStation, Dirt to Daytona. So I remember we did one race in every series. There was 4 of them, and I beat him every time except for the dirt one because I didn't understand the dynamics of like dirt. I just ran into everything. That's how you play video games when you're, you know, 8 years old. You just run into everything. It amazed me that people could drive on the street and not just hit stuff all the time, because you try to play a video game when you're a little kid and you just run into everything. That was just me. That's how it was. Maybe some of you didn't have that problem, but I did. I hit everything that moved. And we came here once to see the shop, and Jeff Opelach was the manager. He later became Greg Biffle's manager and worked for NASCAR and Valvoline. He gave us a door panel from the truck. I remember it was from a Darlington race, he said, and it had a little bit of a tire mark on the side. I remember walking into there and getting that, like when he went in and gave it to us and stuff, but I don't remember being in the building. I remember being in the building, but I don't remember that it was this building. Once somebody told me that, I was like, oh my God, I've been in there before. But yeah, didn't have any idea that it was Kulwicki's building at that time. And I have read that Alan's team would do pit stop practice in that little cul-de-sac right there back in the day, which is pretty cool to think about.
That is neat that that cul-de-sac has been sitting there vacant for that long.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's
like prime real estate.
It is. I'm surprised there's nothing here. It's very strange. I know there's a couple other race shops on this Victory Lane. We're gonna sit in here in Alan's pit stop practice spot. I'm gonna pull those up and we're gonna go look at those next. 5254 right here. This was Bobby Allison Racing, according to the internet. I know there's some pictures floating around of the inside of that place. What's even funnier is that's called Pit Road. Like, this is Pit Road South that we're on now, and I think that one's north, which is pretty funny that he did pit practice on Pit Road. Maybe Bobby Allison did. And right up here, that building right there comes up as Sabco. So that was probably the second location for Sabco after the first one that we went to yesterday. So we just talked to Kenny on the phone and learned some more stuff about that odd second Sabco location. That place was originally built by Rusty Wallace for Kenny Wallace's Cox Treated Lumber team. You know, the black 36 car. His first year in the white car was ran out of somewhere else. Second year was out of there. They did really well. And then he said Rusty wanted to sell the team, so he sold it to Felix Sabates, who took Kenny to Cup in the number 40 car, the Dirt Devil car that Kenny mentions in his videos as the worst year of his life. That's where that happened, out of that place. Felix fired Kenny, and Bobby Hamilton's number 40 Kendall Oil car ran out of there also. And after that, Felix sold it to somebody else. So what was going on was there was one team, one Cup team out of that building for Sabco, and the other one was out of that first building we went to. And Kenny also said that the trailer court across the street from that first Sabco shop is where he first lived when he moved to Charlotte to be on Joe Ruttman's team and later his crew chief. He lived in that trailer park. How about that? Pretty freaking cool. And if you're wondering, yes, this is a real Dale Earnhardt show car trailer. We have a video about that too. Racing History Nerd Zone playlist, everything is on there. If you're here and you're still watching this video, you're gonna like all that stuff because you're probably just like me. Mario Andretti Racing Experience.
There's the Richard Petty Racing Experience too.
Oh, everybody's got their own racing experience these days.
The foreign car racing experience or whatever the hell it is there too.
Okay, don't quote me on this. I'm 99% sure I'll have to do some more research at my desk that this building here is where the K&K insurance team was. You know, Bobby Isaac, Harry Hyde, the Charger Daytona, those guys. I mean, it's been renovated. It's used by Ford Performance now. I think I read that it was a Goodyear building for a while. That's why it's got a blue roof. But this is where that came from. We're literally right behind the racetrack. It's right there.
And they still do cool stuff.
Yeah, it's full of Mustangs in there. Literally, there's got to be like this just stacked to the gills with Mustangs.
You're not gonna reference the Raptors that there's like 8 of, just to like chill in.
Well, I don't know if they can see in the building like we can. They can see the Raptors. There's a bunch of them right there. A lot of history around here. It's just everywhere. And you would never know, because that building looks fairly new, and it has been added onto, but it is what it is. This place here was not a race shop ever to my knowledge, but they make a lot of headers for a lot of the teams. And we had them make some tri-Y collectors for the 632 big block going in our suburban build, and they're ready to get picked up, so we're gonna pick those up. Not really part of the tour, but it's a neat piece of information, and we have to run errands. So now we're coming up on what was Ken Schrader's old shop up until just like the last 2 years. Yeah, it's a really cool building. He sold it to Von Gittin Jr. So this is actually the RTR Lab, as they call it now. Instead of a shop, I guess they call it a lab because it sounds cooler. When we went with Pennzoil to the Pennzoil 400, we met Chelsea Denofa at the fancy dinner where we all felt weird with all the fancy people, and started talking to him. Really cool dude. One of these days when he's in the area, we'll be able to put something together, check out what they got going on in there. Now we're coming up now. We're in the Concord area still, more of like towards town, farther from the speedway. This is allegedly where Kenny Wallace's number 81 Square D car came out of. Okay, we don't need directions anymore. Anyway, this is supposed to be it. This is the address listed for that place. We'll have to ask him and find out for sure. Called a General Truck Repair. Is there any evidence of race shop existence here? Oh yeah, they got a building back there too. Oh, a couple buildings. Must have been a pretty decent operation. We'll take a picture and send it to Kenny and see if he has any stories about it.
Hi, Mitchell. So the story about that shop in Concord, North Carolina is exactly this. The owner, Philbert Martasi, he owned Philmar Racing. Now that was that number 81 original Square D Cup car. But the team was located in Nashville, Tennessee. And they sent me on an expedition to find a shop because they were moving from Nashville, Tennessee over to North Carolina to set up a cup team. So I found that shop myself. And I started cleaning it up, and then all of a sudden, crew chief Gil Martin and the whole team came over from Nashville. What's interesting about that shop is once we got it up and going, it had a lot of great runs. We won some races out of there with, remember the Red Dog car, the Red Dog Xfinity car, Busch car, whatever you want to call it. So we won some Red Dog races out of there, and we ran really good in the Cup car. It got some poles, quick times. Remember, we were on the pole in Martinsville, Tennessee, and we had a pole up there up in Bristol with that Cup car. So all that came out of that shop, and then later on we added on a body shop out of the back, and there's a lot of history. I don't know what's up with that shop now. There's a lot of shops around North Carolina, but that is the history of that shop.
All right, Kenny, we're sorry, but something else stole the show here. The business across the street has a parking lot full of white 90s Suburbans. I think we should ring their doorbell and say, you know what, if you ever need to unload your fleet, you call us first. Just look at those things. God, they're probably like perfectly maintained fleet trucks. They don't look rusty. Wow, this is incredible. Look at that. Kenny Wallace leads us to the promised land. So we pulled in there to ask them about their Suburbans. They don't want to sell any, which is sad, but they're there, which is good. Anyway, the guy who worked there said that he remembers when this was Kenny Wallace's race team shop, and he said they built that building brand new right there. It was going to be their engine shop, and then the team left. And that's all he knew about that. And this place right here was the Stavola Brothers race shop, which is like, Bobby Allison's Miller High Life car, Dick Trickle later, Dick Trickle in the Snickers car, Ray Besto's brakes, Jeff Burton, Hut Strickland, Circuit City, all those came from here. And they got some really neat old stuff here. I think Bobby Hillen's shop, he said, was across the parking lot. It was like one of these. This is one of those places that we are going to find out. Like, oh, there's a freaking chassis right there. Yep. We've been talking to some people that used to work here, and we're gonna do like a full out tour of this place. Don't know when, but it's coming. There's a cool little picture. There used to be a sign right over there that said Stavola Brothers on it. I mean, this place has some serious history. Like before they mandated restrictor plates and Bobby Allison went flying up into the fence, like this is where that car came from. All right, so 100% done deal. You're gonna see the inside of the Stavola building. Just not right now, that'll be a separate video. So if you have not subscribed already, you absolutely need to do that, because tell you what, that is exciting. What little I just saw in there is really freaking cool. We've done some cool stuff, and that's going to be up there. Also learned that this building right here was Alan Kulwicki's engine shop. Now it looks like they do granite stuff in there, but that was right on the property with all the Stavola stuff, which is pretty interesting. The more you know. Not a whole lot has changed inside there, I will say that much. You're going to want to see this. It's like a time capsule of awesome. And they do awesome stuff in there now too. The next one on the stop is actually our own building here, where our shop is, where we build our stuff. This place has hosted a handful of race teams during its time. It was built in '94. The guy who owns it has owned it the entire time. So he told us all of this. We know it's true. That there was a engine builder in here, had all kinds of state-of-the-art equipment, and then he went out of business, sold all of his stuff to Dale Earnhardt. Dale bought this place out for DEI's engine facility, and they built their engines out of here for 3-5 months, something like that, before they finished their main building on Highway 3, which we didn't stop by because we've seen it in other videos. But yeah, so the early days of DEI, their engines were actually built out of here, which is pretty crazy. And back then there was no wall. It was like twice this size. After that, so that bumper up there, that was Lonnie Roush in the truck series. His truck team was in here. There was a couple other things. Another one was Midwest Transit Racing, the number 50 car with Ricky Craven. They were out of here too. He's got pictures somewhere. Haven't found them yet, but they exist. Evidence that can be seen is these blue squares on the floor are in the footprint of like a Craftsman truck or something. And there's a post where there used to be a lift. So they had a lift here for the cars or truck at some point. And those were to mark where to pull up so you could guide yourself onto the lift, which is pretty neat. This is our spot. Excuse the mess. We got all kinds of blown out projects in here. Oh, and those boom tubes up there are from a Morgan McClure Kodak car, like the number 4 at Talladega. Those are super speedway boom tubes. Actually, they won the ARCA race in 2002, and before that it was a cup car that was driven by probably Mike Skinner, Bobby Hamilton, Sterling Marlin. Could have bought the whole car, missed out on it, but I ended up getting the exhaust, which is cool because the X pipes are awesome. We got a couple more bonus shops here that weren't even on, we weren't even gonna go over here. We're on the other side of Lake Norman now in Denver, and just happened to be going out here for something else, actually, to drop off the go-kart body for the Backyard 400 to get wrapped. But right here at this Caliber Collision, I believe that was the Skull Bandit shop, like Phil Parsons, Rick Mast, all that came out of there. And there's another one up here where the Harry Gant team operated out of until the team was sold to Leo Jackson, I think, and he moved it to near Asheville, which is where the team ended up once Andy Petrie bought it and all that. Hope to go over there someday. And we're also going to go by the very first Skull Bandit race shop. The building still stands. This place right there. That is it. Like Harry Yates Aero Coupe cars came out of there. Pretty freaking crazy. I don't know what goes on in there anymore. It doesn't look like a whole lot. There were other teams that used that building after the Bandit operation left. Yeah, man, that's insane. Driven by this place a bunch of times, never knew what it was, but saw this pedestal here and I thought, man, it looks like there used to be a car on there or something. And turns out I was right. There was a car, multiple cars on that pole. This is a building I'd really like to see the inside of. Man, maybe we'll figure that out someday. The original shop, after they moved out of Osterland's, was right there in that building. There's no food service supplies in there anymore, but that's it. That little steel building was the Bandit shop. Pretty freaking wild that it's still there. Don't have any pictures of that back in the day, but we will be getting a better oral history on the history of all of that from some guys who worked there. Stay tuned for that. That's coming. And if you find this stuff interesting, you have any friends that would find it interesting, send it to them. This is the whole point of all this history stuff, is to keep it alive. Keep the interest going. And hopefully, for those of you who are closer to my age, you will find some type of inspiration from the people who have put in the work in the past. That's kind of like why I geek out about this stuff, is when I'm thinking, you know, something's hard, I don't want to get through it, or I wonder why I'm doing it. I just think, well, look at all of this. Look at all these people who have accomplished things and done stuff and succeeded and had fun and created something that lasted longer than themselves. I just think that's really cool. If you have watched this entire thing, we could probably be friends. I'm just saying. I nerd out completely on this stuff, and Logan really appreciates the history too. I can't believe she listens to as much random talking and observations as I do about all that old stuff on a daily basis. All the time. We're very lucky. Anyway, beside the point. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad there's more people like us, you know, that are into the history of the racing and geek out over an old building that is, you know, body shop now. Who cares? 99% of the world does not give a single crap about that, but we do. We are here. We can keep this stuff alive. And I want to know what your story is. Why are you into this stuff? You know, for me, it was, you know, going to NASCAR races with my dad and then hanging out in Rick Crawford's truck and all that stuff like I explained earlier. But what was your story? Leave that in the comments. Tell me and everybody else why you are so bonded to this even this day. Whether you lived through that era or you look back on it and wish you lived through it, like me. What is it? Let's talk about it. We'd love to know. And also, if you like the shirt that I'm wearing, or like the Robert Yates style one I had on earlier, because we filmed this over multiple days, hats and stuff, you can find that at stapletonautowworks.com. And Logan packs all of that stuff. That's like her job, so if you leave a tip, it goes straight to her. I don't know. We do builds too. That's kind of like mostly what we do. It's like building cars, fun stuff, weird stuff, like that Suburban. It's very weird. There's not much crossover. I've realized we're walking around in public that people who have seen the classic NASCAR stuff, or like Rockingham videos or Darrell Waltrip's truck, they come up to us and say that. I'm like, you ever seen the Escalade? Oh, you have an Escalade? Yeah. The 2,000 horsepower Escalade, dude. We drag race. It's a full street truck. It's so weird how the algorithm works that it's like there's one half of viewers and the other half of viewers. And the NASCAR guys, you guys, don't get recommended any of the other stuff that we do. And I think that's really weird because you're gearheads just like us. So we're going to try to beat the algorithm and check that stuff out. If you want to. If you don't want to, I don't care. Keep watching the old NASCAR stuff. I'm just saying you might find something cool there too if you like the way we do things. So we appreciate you, and we'll see you inside one of these race shops sooner than you think.